everyone, welcome to More Than Medals by Crossing the Line. Today we're going to be talking with Howie Sanborn, who's an amazing athlete and a really great friend of mine. Howie is one of those people who helps everybody to feel like they fit in the sport. He's taught me a ton about maintaining my bike, even though I probably still have a lot to learn, and a ton about the sport in general. But the best thing about Howie is the way that he has brought so many new athletes into the sport and brought so much encouragement into the field. He's an incredible athlete in and of himself, and his story is so interesting. He talks about his experience serving in the military, jumping out of planes, and ultimately competing on the world stage in Paris 2024. Let's hear it from Howie himself.
I want to be respectful of your time, Howie, because I know you're a busy guy with important stuff to do. Or maybe not right now, who knows?
I'm chilling.
Yeah.
Think you messed up there.
Oh,
Yeah, it's still.
that's messed. Does it hurt?
I mean, it doesn't feel good, but just like a heat.
Oh.
Look at that thing. Like bird.
Oh, that is not the right shape.
I know, right?
Have you got it checked out?
I mean, I went and got my back adjusted, so my chiro looked at it, and she was not worried. She's like, yeah, she it's pretty standard bursitis. So yeah. Yeah.
He crashed his day chair, is my understanding, right?
Yeah, so when we went to Greece after Worlds, and on the last day we went to Acropolis, and the lift was out. So Jane, my girlfriend, and then my buddy Matt, who is like a beast, they helped carry me up all the stairs that everyone has to walk up. And there's a ton of marble stairs and everything else. Then on the way down, I was bumping down backwards the safe way. And then we got to this one huge step that went down to a platform. And I was like, oh, I'll just freaking roll a wheelie off this thing and be fine. But the marble was so slick that as soon as my back tires started to go, it just slipped backwards like that. And so I went kind of my wheel spun. You know how you're kind of holding the wheel in the wheelie? It kind of slid backwards. So my left elbow
flips out.
Yeah, well, my left elbow went back, and so my back hit, my elbow hit at the same time, but my right arm stayed normal, and so I only hit my left side, and yeah,
You wanted to say hey?
it my back was sore at first because that took the brunt of it, and then
Yeah.
we got down the rest of the way, and I kind of straightened out my arm, and it kind of popped, and I was like, I feel so much better, and the rest of it, that was at 2:30 in the afternoon that it happened, and then we went all day. I mean, we went to so many other things, and then we went back to our Airbnb to change for fancy dinner, and I was like, man, and it looked about like this at that point, and I was like, this thing's pretty swollen.
Does it look great?
Yeah. We had 2 hours of dinner, and then we were going straight to a 4-hour escape room, and so we were out all night, and by the time we were pretty much done, we were halfway done with the escape room when they give you a break, and I was I'd wearing suits and ties still, doing this escape room because we went there.
Oh, cute.
Dinner, and so I was trying to, I'd rolled my sleeve up over my forearm, and I was trying to roll it back down because we were getting cold. I noticed that I just had a lump that was that was just gigantic, and I couldn't get my sleeve over. I didn't know what was wrong. I was like, hey, Matt, help me get my sleeve over this freaking thing. It's swollen. And he's kind of behind me, and I just hear, oh, God. And I was that's as soon as he saw it. So, yeah.
Oh my God. You're tough. I would have cried.
Didn't really, I mean, it's been sore the whole time, but I've been able to have full range of motion. But all that dwelling, because I'm on blood thinners, I think. It's yeah, it just looks worse than it is, but it's yeah.
But you're my arms are kind of bigger. Maybe they're bigger than Yetsy's right now.
Yeah, this forearm is definitely bigger than Yetsy's at one point.
That's really funny. Okay, wow. Thanks for coming to this, being here. I'm really excited. The reason that I wanted to do this podcast is I feel like I'm really lucky in that I have all of you guys. But as a new wheelchair user, I feel like a lot of people don't have access to different people who can sort of share their experiences as wheelchair users and as athletes and just as people. And I feel like I have really, really incredible friends that whenever I talk, I'm a peer mentor for spinal cord injury Manitoba. And whenever I talk to those people, I feel like the people that I'm really talking about are you guys, being I like the perspective I have on this is because of this person, or like I felt really uncomfortable with that until I met this person and then they taught me something. And so I feel like the point, I guess, is to kind of share those stories of like adapting to life as a wheelchair user and also pursuing sport and then also just anything else you want because I feel like you're just a freaking cool person across the board. So, what was a thing that sort of stood out to me, not knowing you, but knowing that you had a military background? Is that you had a background as a ranger. And I'm Canadian and I had no idea what that is. But would you like to kind of talk about some of your background in the military and what that role means?
Yeah, I enlisted in the U.S. Army when I was actually 17, and then I had to finish high school, so it felt delayed entry. I know I was like super excited to get in, and I knew that I wanted to be an Airborne Ranger. And if you watch any like old war movies, like Saving Private Ryan, like Tom Hanks's character's a Ranger, Black Hawk Down, they're all Rangers. Con Air with Nicolas Cage, he's a ranger. Like, these are, like, movies that I grew up with, and I grew up in a very military family, so I wanted to be an airborne ranger. I wanted to be the best of the best if I went in the military, and I came from a really small town, really small graduating class, 33 of us, like, kinda came from nowhere, and I was super short and super skinny, and well, I was like I joined the Army at, like, 118 pounds, so I was, like, pretty tiny, for someone that wants to go the route that I did, so, um, I definitely had, like, a little chip on my shoulder, to prove everyone wrong, but I went in, I did basic training, infantry school, airborne school, ended up in a really elite ranger unit. So I had to go to ranger school, military free fall school, pathfinder school, like all of this, like really intense specialized training to do the missions that we were tasked with. And during my time, I enlisted just before 9/11. And so after my training was done, Iraq was getting ready to kick off, and so I did 2 12-month deployments in support of Operation Iraq Freedom with my Ranger unit. Um, Kinda at that point in your military career, people start to make decisions on what route they wanna go, if they wanna go special forces or maybe leave the military or whatever it is. Then I had an opportunity to try out for the Army's parachute team, which is a really advanced, kind of relations and recruiting tool that the Army has. And most of it is along the air show circuit. Some of it's in sporting events, but what we would do is skydive and then fly our parachutes into uh, these locations, whatever it was, and just kind of represent the Army, which I thought was just a really cool way to give back and try to really tell my own story and make sure that people that grew up in similar cases where you come from a small farm, come from nothing, that you can go and do big things and, see the world and make, lifelong friends and learn all of these just like really specialized for me is a lot of leadership schools. Uh, and so I was skydiving. I did like 2,500 plus skydives over the 5 seasons I was on the parachute team. I've jumped into air shows, tractor pulls, music events, football stadiums, baseball stadiums, Transformers 2 movie. So I've done like a lot of full jumps, and then yeah, so it's like a military career in a nutshell.
When you talk about being a ranger and you give those examples of those movies, first of all, that's really helpful for someone like me who has very little context. But what I think is interesting about that is when I watch those movies and I think of those types of characters and the roles that those people are doing, I don't necessarily think of the traits that I would associate with you. But I think that that really changed when I listened to you talk with Kyle, and you did a podcast with Kyle and talked about the Ranger Creed, and you talked about sort of the code of conduct that you guys live by. And I think when I heard that, I was like, oh, this really makes sense as to who I know Howie to be, which is like a very team-oriented person and a very selfless person, and the kind of person who is like always looking for how you can help other people, even when it doesn't necessarily make sense. Like, you helped me a lot as an athlete, as a random new Canadian athlete, not on your team, not racing against you, but just because that's the kind of person you are. So can you talk about that, like how your experience as a ranger contributed to the kind of person you are, and maybe what's different about that and what people would think of as a ranger?
Yeah, I think, man, yeah, I still. I still live by the Ranger Creed, and it's something that I think we all kind of say gets beat into you. You have to memorize it. Like when I first got to my Ranger unit, we weren't allowed to sit in chairs. We sat on the floor. If we didn't have a paper tab, like we didn't have, it's literally like a tab. Trying to think if I have one in this room, but anyway, it's like a badge that we wear right on our shoulder. And if you don't have it, like you sit on the floor. And there's a thing called a Ranger Handbook, and it's literally everything you need to know to go to Ranger School and perform well and graduate. And part of that's the Ranger Creed. And so if you weren't actively doing something, you sat on the floor, you read your Ranger Handbook, and you studied. And we recited the creed hundreds of times a day, and in a way that, like, people are screaming at you, and if you mess up, you're doing push-ups, and they just, like, drive it home, not because they want to harass you or haze you. It's because, like, if you actually study the creed and learn the creed and memorize the creed and, like, make it part of you, it it does change who you are as a person, and it instills values like, uh, selfless service and, um, you know, a willingness to never give up, uh, no matter what, and to be the best. Like, it talks about, you know, "Gallantly will I show the world that I am a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My courtesy to superior officers, neatness of dress, and care of equipment shall set the example for others to follow." And so even though that's, like, a very military thing, I look at that the same way now where, like, I use those pieces, acknowledging the fact that a ranger is a more elite soldier who rides at the cutting edge of battle by land, sea, or air. I accept the fact that as a ranger, my country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. So, like, that little part where it's like further, faster, like, I still embody that, and I bring that in my racing, and I bring that into my civilian life. Uh, and there's a lot in there that, surrender is not a ranger word. I'll never leave a fallen comrade. Like, those pieces of the creed change who you are when it comes to, even doing triathlon. And we are like kind of a family. There is a small community of us. And so you do, like, for me, it makes me want to give back and make sure that everyone is performing to the best of their ability, regardless of, uh, and I get that it's part of it's a business, right? And like, it's important that the USA takes home medals. Uh, but I don't think that should be at the cost of not having great competition either. Uh, like, to me, like, if you're gonna go and don't battle people that can fight back, like, it was
Yeah.
this things where it's like, I don't mind helping, and not that I'm gonna give away my secrets necessarily, but, like, I don't mind helping when people need help with equipment or, if I mean, we're racing at people that are in countries that just can't get things, they can't Amazon a set of tires, and so when their tires run out, they're just that's it, like, they can't train, so it's nothing to me to order a couple tires here and go and just hook them up, Yeah, all definitely parts of the Ranger Creed and being coming from a place where, like, you depended on, uh, the man or woman, the soldier that's left and right of you, and they depended on you, and you could depend on them because it's just the way it's supposed to work, like, there was never any doubt in your mind, so I look at it the same way when we're all a little community. I'm like, I know that if I needed something, there's people that would help me, and so when people have need, I help them back.
It's interesting because you talk about that like it's so expected and like it's so standard, but I don't think that that is the standard in elite sport without people like you. And I think the reason that the triathlon community in paratriathlon and in the PTWC class for sure is such a family is because of people like you. Because when I joined, that's the standard that you set for me, and that's how you treated me. And then when another athlete comes up, I think about that when there's an opportunity to help someone else. So I feel like it seems so standard and is so customary to you, but it's not standard. I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, like, be the change you wanna see in the world, right? So, like, it is not the standard all the time. There are definitely people that can be very selfish, and there's people that, only look out for themselves. Like, that just exists. That's the reality we're in, but I'm not going to change who I am to to try to fight that. Like, I'm going to keep doing what I believe is right, and then hopefully there's like a trickle down effect. And I know when I came into the sport, there was definitely other athletes, that had been in the sport for a decade before me, like Preach DeBoer and even like Geert Schipper, that they Geert's from a different country, but like is always willing to sit down with me and feed me information as well. Krieg was awesome. Carlos Melita, like just never afraid to share their experiences and what got them to that level. And so fortunately I had that, and that like helped instill in me like the same things that I was already used to. So I just kept it going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe to loop back to your story. So you were a Golden Knight at the time that you were injured. Your job was to jump out of planes in a simple summary of what it was. So can you tell me what you were doing when you were injured and kind of as much as you're comfortable with how that happened?
Um, so I was skydiving on the parachute team, and that was my daily job. So like if I wasn't at an air show, we were trained skydiving, and we did have some free time. And so obviously in the military, we do a lot of fitness. So I was already running, and I'd gotten into cycling. And although I knew how to swim, I had never been like a lap swimmer. And one of my teammates had done Ironmans and stuff, and he's like, "Hey, we should like cross train in the pool." And so I started to learn how to swim, more efficiently. And he's like, "Have you ever thought about doing a triathlon?" And I was like, huh, "Yeah." Like I would, but yeah, like not gonna happen. I was like, "I'm good. This sucks. Swimming is hard. Like I have no desire to."
How they all start.
I know. I don't even know how much longer that was. Maybe the next year. I don't know. Maybe less than a year. I was at this air show in Kirksville, Missouri. It's a tiny little town in Northeast Missouri. And I knew I got there a couple days early to set everything up. And I knew that we were going to jump Saturday. Sunday, we were going to have the day off. And then Monday, we were going to Chicago. And I just saw this. I think I might have even been in the bike shop. I think I had my bike with me, maybe. And there was like a advertisement for a triathlon on Sunday. It's called the Nemo, the Northeast Missouri Triathlon, right? The Nemo. And I was like, well, I'm here. I've got the day off. So I like called back and I was like, "Hey, go in my locker and like grab my swim goggles and a couple other things." And I was like, "And bring them with you, when you guys come," when the rest of the team showed up. And so did our jumps at the air show. Next, that evening, like you had to go sit up transition. Never done triathlon. Never researched how to do a triathlon. I'm like setting up transition. I was like, the dude next to me, I was like, "Bro, where do we change after the swim?" And
You're gonna like get naked and
he's like,
I'm glad someone stopped you.
"No, like we don't change." Now, well, I was like, "Well, how do I change from what I'm going to swim in to what I'm going to bike in?" And he's like, "You don't. You just wear the same thing for the whole thing." And I had like a $200 pair of bike shorts, and I was like, "Well, I'm not going to swim in a river in these. Like these are expensive bike shorts." So I just throw on like running shorts, and
Nice.
yeah, like I had no business. It was like a 1,200-meter swim down a river. Like the current was not enough to help me. Like I remember seeing this guy. He kept flipping on his back. We were way in the back and doing backstroke, and I was swimming for all I was worth. And he was staying with me, and I was like, "This is not going well." And so bike course, I think it was like a 20-mile bike, not in bike shorts. So that was rough. And then it was a 5-mile run, and it was like 2.5 miles up, 2.5 miles down the hill. And I don't know where I finished. I just remember I got like destroyed. And the next day, like we're supposed to go to Chicago and jump for the air show, and I can like barely walk. And I was close. I was like, "This was awesome. Like I want to pursue this, like I want to get better at this." Uh, so I did that was 2009. And so over the course of like 2000, I think 2010, I did a half Ironman. 2011, I did like a bunch of local sprints, and I just kept getting better and better and upgrading equipment. And you know how it is, you fall into it where it's like, "Oh, I got to have like a better bike and better tires." And so I just kind of went all in. If I wasn't skydiving, I was training for a triathlon. And 2012, uh, me and one of my teammates, John Lopez, he was brand new. He had just got to the team. He was like sleeping on the couch one morning. I came in and I was like, "Hey, dude, put your running shoes on. Like, we're going for a run." And, I was a senior leader on the team. He was a new guy. And I was just like, I brought in my old bike and I was like, "Hey, you go to the bike shop and ask them for bike shoes that fit, like get the right shoes." And I just made him start riding the bike. Like our first day out, like he doesn't know how to clip in, clip out. He just biffs it at a red light. And, but we started training like full on together. And, I was like, "I'm going to do an Ironman. Like, let's do it." And, so we are training all season for that. And so summer 2012, we did, I actually did what would turn out to be my final jump was in the Yankee Stadium, with John. We did they call it a two stack. We literally jump out of the plane, open our parachutes, grab onto each other, and then we fly around together while we're holding onto our parachutes, fly into the stadium that way. And, so I flew him in. I got promoted actually that day. It was like a big ceremony at Yankee Stadium. And, we went home and I think we were home for a week and I did a triathlon and I didn't win.
Of course.
Well, and I was like, I just couldn't believe I didn't. Like, I wanted to do better. And, so I had like a swim that I was off that day. That is like the day after, and I did a swim, and then it was nice out, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna do a bike ride. Like, I can't miss out on this weather. Like, I gotta get training. And, this was in Raleigh, and I got hit by a car, hit and run in a bike lane. And at the time, I didn't think it was that bad. Like, when it first happened, like, I got hit, I kind of flipped over, and I got on the side of the road, and I was like checking out my bike, and then I was like, man, I was like, my shoulder's killing me. And so I kind of like took a knee and I was like, yeah, maybe I just need to like sit for a second before I go again. And so then I like sat down and then I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to lay down for a second. And so then I was like, I think I'm in trouble. And so I called 911 and it turned out uh, that I broken my shoulder blade in half and tore two rotator cuff muscles, uh, and along with like a lot of road rash, like a lot. And so that rehab was 3 months. I couldn't skydive, couldn't train with the team, couldn't travel with the team, couldn't ride my bike, couldn't do anything for 3 months, like, in a sling. And at the 3-month mark, after doing all sorts of physical therapy, they cleared me to start swim, bike, run, and I was a week away from skydiving. So I'd, like, started to do these things, and we went to Kirksville, Missouri for that air show that I did my first triathlon at. And the triathlon that weekend happened to be on the same day we were gonna jump. And so it wasn't possible to do the Nemo, but it was kind of full circle. I ended up back at the Nemo, and me and John go out for a quick 20-mile bike ride before the jump, and 3 mile from home. And I remember the turnaround, turn around at the 10-mile mark. I remember that there was like a Casey's General Store or whatever right there, and I don't remember like a day of my life. Woke up in the hospital, paralyzed. No idea what had happened. But I got hit by a distracted driver going 65 miles an hour on this little country highway, just, crossed over the rumble strip, paying attention, hit me from behind, which shot me into John, which tracked us both into the ditch. Uh, I definitely took the brunt of the car impact, so I ended up paralyzed. John ended up with a pretty serious laceration. We both got life flighted in Mizzou, Columbia Hospital. So I started and finished my able-bodied triathlon career.
Interesting. It's interesting how you have those like moments in your story that you'll never quite understand why there's that coincidence, but it's interesting how that seems to happen. From being an athlete who was injured on a bike, you then chose to pursue a career in racing a bike, which I am guilty of as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Does that impact you and your training and your racing? Do you think of that, or is that just something that doesn't bother you?
um, I think everyone thought I was insane. I was in ICU on my iPad looking at hand cycles. Like, I'm not this 3 to 4 days after I got hurt. I was just like, I had read about paratriathlon in like a triathlete magazine, so I knew about like CAF and I knew it existed. I didn't know much more than that, but I knew it existed. So I also knew that, my military career had just been taken from me. Um, but I looked at it like, okay, like everything's been taken from me. I was up here, now I'm down here, but I know paratriathlon exists. I know hand cycles exist. Let me start researching this now. And yeah, definitely a lot of people were like, should you ride a bike again? Like, you just got hit by 2 cars. And I was like, this is something I can still do. Like, this is something that hasn't been taken from me and I won't let it be. Um, and so there's maybe like a little bit of, you know, just chip on my shoulder on that one too, where I was just like no one's going to tell me what I can't do. Um, yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of kind of full circle moments on that, but I think because I don't remember the accident, like I don't remember getting hit by that car. I think that made it easier to get back on a bike. I think
Yeah.
on the physical side, like I was still, my arms were perfectly fine. So get on the hand cycle, there was nothing physically stopping me from riding a hand cycle. But I think if I'd had to deal with more mental trauma when it came to, remembering that act,
Remembering.
yeah, that might have really held me back. And I'm sure it is definitely a hurdle for a lot of new injuries, regardless of how they got hurt. That's going to cause trauma.
Yeah.
And I'll say I lucked out on that part a little bit. Um, yeah.
Do you feel like your thought on how fragile you are changed after you got injured? Because I could see how, I mean, you've always been, and always as far as I've known it, I didn't know the 118-pound version of you. So you've always been very strong and capable seeming to me. But did it change your perception of like how dangerous things can be or how dangerous the sport can be?
I mean, I think as a ranger and,
Yeah, fair.
guys that have been, like, deployed and, like, when you're at the top, like, you do start to think you're invincible, especially there's just, like, close call after close call after close call between combat and doing, pretty extreme, skydiving, um, so you do start to think, like, "Oh, I'm, like, invincible, like, I can get away with so much and be perfectly fine," and then, just like that, you find out you're not, um but I don't think it really s I mean, I went right back to cycling, I've skydived, gone back to, mono skiing, like, I guess I look at it like, you can't no one can know what's gonna happen, you know what I mean? Like, I was just riding my bike, minding my own business, I did nothing wrong, right?
Yeah.
And then my life was changed, and so I guess I kept looking at life like that, like, don't hide somewhere just because 'cause you're afraid of getting hurt, like, 'cause you can't stop it from happening, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. And I think from understanding a little bit about your life, it sounds like your injury was during one of your lower risk activities.
Exactly, and so I think it didn't change my perception of, like, "Oh, man, I could get hurt again." I was just like, "Well, if I'm gonna get hurt again, I'm gonna get hurt again." It might be
Yeah.
something dumb like my elbow, or it might, like, it might be when I'm super focused and it still happens, but, like, I would rather get hurt doing something I love than never do what I love, Right.
Yeah. I love that. I love to hear that. I feel very strongly the same, and I get asked that a lot, like, "Why would you do the same thing again?" Or, like, I feel like it's always the moms, like, my mom was like, "Oh, are you sure you wanna race bikes now? Like, does that really feel like the right thing?" And for me, I feel the same as you, like, 100% yeah. Um, can you talk a little bit about what was unique about your injury experience as opposed to mine is that I was conscious when I was injured, and so I was aware the whole time, like, no one had to tell me what my prognosis was or what my future might look like. Do you remember being told about your injuries, and how did that affect you?
Yeah, my memories are so blurry, my part of my initial injury was I had nicked my femoral artery and was bleeding out, and it wasn't noticed until, several hours actually after the crash, but well, maybe not hours, but by the time I crashed and the helicopter picked me up and life flighted me, I was just bleeding out the whole time, just real slowly, and so I had to have that repaired first, and then I remember like, having a broken back. I hadn't had back surgery yet, but I was, like, aware, and I remember people I I like to think that I knew, that I was like no one had to tell me I knew, but I've been told by several people that not only was I told, but I was told repeatedly because I kept waking up and asking what had happened.
Oh my gosh, the poor people in ways that had to tell you, but also you.
I mean, but I just remember being like, yeah, I was new, like, but
Yeah, yeah.
I was just on a bunch of drugs and
Mhm.
blood loss. So, um, yeah, that definitely, man.
Hard to hear for
Yeah.
anyone.
And especially, like I said, like I was at the top, like,
Yeah.
I had like achieved so much as a ranger and then so much as a golden knight. I'd just taken over as team leader for the team I was on. Like, it was like everything was just like, just right. It was headed the right direction, and I was at the top of the mountain, and then I woke up at the bottom, and with any traumatic injury, traumatic accident, there's loss, devastating loss, and so you do have to figure out how to grieve that, um, and I think I had a really good support system between my teammates and family and the care providers that I had. Like, again, a bit of luck, like, because not everyone always has that. Not everyone always gets that. And I did have a really good support system.
Yeah, that definitely helps in that circumstance. Is there something that stands out to you about what that support system did that you were like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you handled it like this," or "I'm so glad that this person was there"?
Um, yeah, I think, my Golden Knight team, um, they made sure someone stayed with me. I mean, I had people with me the whole time I was in ICU, basically, and um, when I did rehab for like from injury to when I got home was like 6 months, so I'd been gone for quite a while. And when I came back, they were there and gave me the opportunity to start pursuing. I did my first local race a month after I got out of rehab, and then a month after that, I did my first race for Team USA, and they were very supportive of me, being able to do rec therapies and do racing. And by doing those and being allowed to do those, it started to create my community inside of being disabled, which is very separate from my community of Golden Knights. So I kind of like had a good support system, and now I was helping to build the one that I was going to use when I got out. So yeah.
Do you think that you knew you were doing that at the time? Like, do you think that you were like, "I know that I love this team on the Golden Knights, and I'm looking for this team again," or do you think it just sort of happened organically?
I think it was hard going back. Every time I went back to like the team room where the Golden Knights are, they have this huge fancy team room with a museum out front. And every time I went in there, it was hard. Even just going back to my house, which was a 2-story home that was not wheelchair friendly. I tell people it was like I was living with like the ghost of myself, like, and so every time I went there, like it made it harder to go back. And so I definitely was looking for, um, that same type of community, but I knew it needed to be separate. I knew it would never be the same, if I tried to stay, and it would make my life more difficult. And I still have lifelong friends from the Golden Knights, that will never change. But I needed a community of people that understood what I was really going through and what my life looked like, and obviously, disabled sport gives you that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So what was your first interaction with parasport?
Yeah, my first interaction with parasport was probably I did my rehabilitation in Chicago, and so right away, one of my physical therapists, she was an Ironman, had been a volunteer for Dare to Try. At the time in 2012, Dare to Try was the only paratriathlon specific club in the country. It just happened to be in Chicago. Um, and so she linked me up with Melissa Stockwell and Carrie Sirota, 2 of the co-founders, and we started, man, like, I think I might have been in rehab a couple weeks there, and I started talking to them, and then it was like, "Okay, like, let's get you in the pool. Like, let's get you a swim,
Weird thing.
get you in the pool, and then we do a hand cycle class, like, twice a week. Let's get you on a hand cycle inside." And then I bought, like, a cheapo racing chair on, like, Craigslist, and
Shove yourself into someone else's.
it was, like, gigantic, but it was, like, something to get pushing and start to learn. And Adam Finney, lived in Chicago at the time, and, he's a great dude, and so he basically told me, he's like, "You're gonna hate this." He's like, "The racing chairs suck." He's like, "It's gonna take, like, couple years of you just like kind of hating it, and then one day it'll just kind of click,
Mm.
and then you'll just be good to go, and you'll just go from there. He's like, but until then, like, don't give up. Like, just keep grinding in it. And that was definitely my experience with it, where it was like, man, I'm never getting faster. And then all of a sudden one day I'm kind of,
Here we go.
yeah, I was like, hey, cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so that was my first interaction, was definitely Dare to Try, and which is just, I mean, super lucky.
Incredible human.
Yeah, and just so lucky that I chose to rehab in Chicago, completely not knowing that that existed there. So
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have that story of like that specific organization making such a big impact on them as an athlete. Do you think those athletes that you specifically mentioned have different impairments to yours? Do you think that there's uh something, do you still get that same sense of camaraderie from people with different impairments? And is there something about like the disabled community and the parasport community that was helpful to you?
yeah, I mean, I think there's always gonna be a distinction, like we call it all the time, right? Like you got like your like ambulatory folks, your walkers, and then you got your wheelies, right? And you see that distinction like as soon as we show up to a building, and everyone that can walk goes up the stairs, and everyone that can roll goes up the ramp. Like there's always gonna be a little separation there. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because our disability and our life in a wheelchair is very specific, and the stuff that we deal with is very specific. So for me, like the first camp I went to with Dare to Try, um, I was just surrounded by all sorts of athletes, but the wheelchair ones, the ones that had been in their wheelchairs, like Creek for like 10 years, Carlos for like 20 years, like I was so happy to like kind of pick their brain and like see how they did things, watch how they've transferred, watch how they got in and out of their bikes, watch how they, asked them for advice on equipment and how to do things in a, more efficient way, because the stuff you learn in rehab is not always the best, like learning to go off a curb backwards at that first camp. We were in like Cracker Barrel, and we're like going back to the hotel, and there's like a curb. Everyone just wheelies down it. And I just turned around and went down backwards, and they were just like,
Nerd.
yeah, they're like, nope. They're like, that's how we do it. And I was like, well, that's how I do it. Like, that's how I was taught.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's fine. They're like, that's like kind of like the really safe way to do it. They're like, but it's faster and cooler. And when I got to my Ranger unit, I'll give you the 3 rules real quick that I learned. This was right away, 'cause day 1 in the Ranger unit. They're like, rule 1, look cool at all times. That's rule 2. These are the rules. It doesn't,
The rules.
yeah,
Okay.
they're the rules. Yeah. They transcend time. Now, rule 2, know what you're doing at all times.
Okay.
So look cool at all times, know what you're doing at all times. And rule 3, if you don't know what you're doing, refer to rule 1, look cool. And so,
There you go.
and it works. I'm not,
Helps you to make that decision if you're gonna take like the risky route versus the more safe route.
yeah, like know what you're doing, but look cool all the time. Cause that way, if you don't know what you're doing, people are still like, man, that dude probably knows what he's doing. No.
Yeah, yeah. You do always look like you know what you're doing.
And sometimes I don't.
That's awesome. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that it's so hard to replace that experience to get it from any other place than the people who live it and who do it themselves. And I remember not long ago teasing Kendall for going down a ramp in Yokohama backwards because she doesn't use her wheelchair as much. And so it's funny that that exact experience like translates from person to person, that everyone remembers when they learned that.
I mean, we were literally just in Spain. She was still going off curbs backwards or needing help going off curbs. And we're like, Kendall, you're about to learn how to do this. And in like 5 minutes, we taught her how to go off curbs. And then she spent like the rest of the day wheeling off curbs, like learning the
I was gonna say, last time I was with her, she was wheeling off curbs, so you did something right.
and that in like 5 minutes, and it's just like one of those things where it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And you're around this community of people that know things you don't, and then boom, share knowledge and move forward. I did want to quick touch on the other athletes, the ambulatory athletes with different disabilities. I will say, like, I know like the word inspiring, inspiration is like this weird word that people have made their decision on, but I am inspired by some of those athletes. I think our disabilities is very difficult. like getting around in a wheelchair. This life is very difficult. But I also see like Kyle Kuhn do a triathlon completely blind, watch him get around the world completely blind, and I just think to myself like, damn, that's hard. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's got all his limbs work, but that is hard. Like that is
Terrifying.
yeah, like, and he just does it so gracefully. And we've definitely talked about it because he's like, man, I don't know how you do it. Like how you do a triathlon without, with just your arms. He's like at this level. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you're running around. How you sit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I do see those people overcoming their types of disabilities, it just makes me want to work harder at mine, especially early on. So I think it was important to be around a community of all sorts of disabilities.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, and I think you touched on something that I really agree with too, and that the disabled community in some circles has shied so much away from calling someone inspiring that we're hesitant to say it even when that's how we feel. And so I think for me anyway, what I the context that I can understand people not liking being called inspiring is like when you're going about your daily life. Like if I'm grocery shopping and someone wants to tell me that's inspiring to me, I'm like, that's kind of embarrassing because like this is really standard. I do this every day. And also like I'm doing it like without a list and I forgot half my stuff. Like I'm not even doing a good job of this. And so I find that it doesn't resonate with me as much if someone were to say that. But at the same time, like when you talk about finding those other athletes, it's inspiring. And I think I find you inspiring and found you inspiring when I was first injured and had no idea what I was doing. And I felt like for myself, like I felt like I looked up to you guys so much, the more established athletes. And I also was like intimidated by you. And was like, I can't ask that guy. Like, look at him. He like knows what he's doing and he's like comfortable. Like he's going off the curbs in the cool way. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think it's interesting to then see you say that about other people and to kind of reclaim that word. Because I think in some ways, like that is the only word for how we sometimes feel about each other or how we feel about anyone.